Hi, I'm Bob. We will solve the problems for the sections on behavioral economics and challenges. Let's solve exercise 5.1. Illustrate the logic of the endowment effect using a kinked indifference curve. Let the angle be greater than 90 degrees. Suppose the prices change, so the slope of the budget line through the endowment changes. In part A, use the diagram to explain why an individual whose endowment point is at the kink will only trade from the endowment point if the price change is substantial. Suppose the endowment point is at the kink, E1. The initial budget line is L1. The highest indifference curve touches L1 at E1. A small price change rotates the budget line from L1 to L2. The optimal bundle is still at the kink, E1. When the price change is substantial, from L1 to L3, the optimal bundle moves to E2 at a highest indifference curve. In part B, what rules can we use to determine the optimal bundle? Can we use all the conditions that we derived from determining an interior solution? The highest indifference curve rule is used to determine the optimal bundle. It says the optimal bundle is on the highest indifference curve that touches the budget constraint. Since the indifference curve is not continuously differentiable at the kink, we could not use the tangency condition to find the interior solution for a small price change. Let's solve exercise 5.2. Why would a consumer's demand for a supermarket product change when the product price is quoted inclusive of taxes, rather than before tax? Is the same effect as likely for people buying a car? Behavioral economists believe that people are more likely to consider information if it is presented in a way that grabs their attention or if it takes relatively little thought or calculation to understand. Economists use the term salience to describe this idea. The tax salience is the awareness of a tax. If a store's posted price includes the sales tax, consumers observe the change in the price as the tax rises. On the other hand, if a store posts the pre-tax price and collects the tax at the cash register, consumers are less likely to be aware that the post-tax price increases when the tax rate increases. So consumers have more response in demand to the posted price change that includes tax. Economists also use bounded rationality to explain it. People have a limited capacity to solve complex problems. People incur a cost to calculate the post-tax price if the price tag shows the pre-tax price. Some people think it is not worth it, so they ignore the tax change and their demand for the good is not affected. However, for expensive products such as cars or houses, the benefit from tax calculation is greater than the calculation cost. Thus, whether the tax is included in the posted price or collected at the cash register makes little difference. Let's try the challenge part 6.1. Suppose the challenge solution were changed so that Max and Bob still have identical tastes but have the usual shaped indifference curves. Use a figure to discuss how the different slopes of their budget lines affect the bundles of printed books and e-books that each chooses. Can you make any unambiguous statements about how their bundles differ? Can you make an unambiguous statement if you know that Bob's budget line goes through Max's optimal bundle? They have identical usual shaped indifference curves. Bob's budget line is flatter than Max's budget line because the price ratio of the e-books to the printed books differs in the two countries. Bob purchases relatively more e-books, and Max buys relatively more printed books. Their optimal bundles are where the indifference curve is tangent to their budget constraints. Because their incomes are unknown, we cannot make any unambiguous statements about how their bundles differ. If Max has much more income than Bob, his optimal bundle may contain more of both goods than Bob. If we know that Bob's budget line goes through Max's optimal bundle, then we can tell that Bob will buy more e-books and fewer printed books than Max. Because at EM, Bob's indifference curve is steeper than his budget line. The last dollar spent on e-books gives Bob more utility than the last dollar spent on printed books. Bob will buy more e-books and fewer printed books to increase his utility until his budget line is tangent to a higher indifference curve, I2. Let's solve exercise 6.2. West Virginians who live near the border with other states can shop on either side of the border. When a 6% food tax was imposed in West Virginia, if West Virginians bought food in West Virginia, their total cost was the price of the food plus the tax. If they bought across the border in states that do not tax food, the total cost was the price plus the cost due to the extra travel. Researchers found that West Virginian food sales dropped 8% in border counties when a 6% sales tax on food was imposed. Explain why. The West Virginia residents can buy the same products in the state or across the border. Suppose they view the same goods from the two places as perfect substitutes. The indifference curves for perfect substitutes are straight lines with a slope of -1. Before the tax, the budget constraint is L1. The price of the goods inside the state is cheaper than the sum of the price and travel cost of the goods across the border. Their optimal bundle is E1, where they spend their entire income on goods inside the state. After the tax, the price of the goods inside the state increased and could be higher than the sum of the price and travel cost of the same goods outside the state for some consumers. The budget line becomes L2. The optimal bundle moves to another corner E2, and these consumers only purchase goods across the border. Therefore, the sales inside the state dropped, with some consumers switching to cross-border purchases. Let's solve exercise 6.3. Researchers found that people who live in high sales tax locations are much more likely than other consumers to purchase goods over the internet, because internet purchases are generally exempt from the sales tax if the firm is located in another state. They found that a 1% increase in a state's sales tax increases online purchases by the state's residents by just under 2%. Is the explanation for this result similar to that in the challenge solution? Why or why not? If the consumers in different curves are straight lines, as in the challenge solution in the textbook, then the tax increase would either have no effect on the optimal bundle or move the optimal bundle to another corner. Researchers should have observed no change in sales or a complete change from in-store shopping to online shopping. However, they found a moderate change. So the consumers in difference curves are more likely to be the usual shaped indifference curves that are convex to the origin, like the one in exercise 6.1. The relative price change results in an increase in online shopping and a decrease in in-store purchases. Let's do exercise 6.4. Researchers found that roughly 1/5 of owners of flexible fuel cars choose gasoline when the gas price is 20% above that of ethanol. Similarly, 1/5 of motorists choose ethanol when ethanol is 20% more expensive than gasoline. What can you say about these people's tastes? Do they view ethanol and gasoline as perfect substitutes? My answer is yes and no. The answer is no because if gasoline and ethanol are perfect substitutes, consumers will spend their entire income on the cheaper one. But that is not the case. So gasoline and ethanol are imperfect substitutes. The consumers in difference curves are convex to the origin. Consumers buy both the gas and the ethanol at the interior optimal bundle. The answer could be yes, because consumers incur other costs of the purchases, such as searching for fuel stations. Some consumers may have very high costs, and therefore they are still buying cheaper fuel, including these costs. Gasoline and ethanol are perfect substitutes in this case, but the budget constraints have different slopes for different consumers with different extra costs. Let's finish exercise 6.5. Until 2012, California, Pennsylvania, and Texas required firms to collect sales tax for online sales only if the chain had a physical presence in those states. Thus, those states collected taxes on Best Buy's online sales because it had stores in each of those states, but they did not collect taxes from Amazon because it did not have physical locations in those states. Starting in 2012, Amazon had to pay taxes in these states. According to the researchers, consumers living in states that collected sales tax during checkout reduced Amazon purchases by 11%. After the tax was imposed on Amazon, Best Buy had a 4% to 6% increase in its online sales in those states. Use an indifference curve budget line diagram to show why Best Buy sales rose after taxes were imposed on Amazon. Suppose some consumers view the same goods from Amazon and from Best Buy as perfect substitutes. The indifference curves are straight lines with a slope of -1. When the tax was imposed only on Best Buy, the budget line is L1 and the optimal bundle E1 is at the corner of the budget line that hits the Q1 axis. When the tax is imposed on both firms, the budget line becomes L2 with a slope of -1. Those consumers who only buy goods from Amazon are indifferent between purchases from both firms now, so Best Buy's sales rise. Thank you very much for doing the exercises with me today. See you tomorrow in the next chapter. Goodbye. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.